This week on the Music Biz Weekly Podcast, I think this is the first time, not the guests have joined us, it's the first time we've actually discussed this topic. Bruce and Jeremy from Hypebot and Bandsintown join us to talk about Hypebot, the philosophy of Hypebot, what's behind their decision-making and their editorial direction, and what's the relationship between Hypebot and Bandsintown when it comes to editorial content. This is a great discussion to give you some amazing insight to Hypebot.com, which has been around for a long time. And as we've always said, should be one of your go-to sources every day, if not every week.
Welcome to the Music Biz Weekly Podcast, celebrating over 15 years and over 600 weekly episodes, where Michael Brandvold and Blasco, two longtime music industry pros, discuss the very latest trends, tools and tactics that you need to succeed in this new music business.
The Music Biz Weekly Podcast has moved to a brand new YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss future episodes. Visit www.musicbizweeklypodcast.com, subscribe on YouTube, follow and rate us on Spotify, subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. We appreciate your support.
Music Biz Weekly Podcast. Bruce, first of all, I got to say, are you just a permanent co-host here? I feel like you're always on this show.
Anytime you want me. I don't want to be permanent.
For those of you who only listen and don't watch, today I'm joined by Bruce and Jeremy from Hypebot, Bandsintown. Blasco's not here today because he got called out at the very last minute for some client stuff he had to deal with. And I can tell you, he was actually really looking forward to this conversation. He's a big fan of Hypebot himself. But Bruce and Jeremy are joining us to sort of talk about what's new in the world of Hypebot. I mean, if you're a regular reader, you at least have noticed it looks different. It looks significantly different. It looks great. It looks amazing. It's super clean, super easy to navigate and read. But I want Jeremy, Bruce, I want you guys to sort of talk about what brought this on, where you're going with this.
I'm going to start, Jeremy. Is that all right?
But yeah, I was gonna say you should start, and then maybe I'll take.
So no, I started writing Hypebot 21 years ago now. And just as sort of an intellectual exercise, like the music industry is changing. This was Napster. I mean, that's how long ago we're talking about. And the music industry is changing, and I have to understand it. And the people I work with should deserve to understand it. And that's how it all started. And it then took on kind of a life of its own. For a while, there was not much competition. It was so early in the space. But anyway, in 2019, Bandsintown acquired it and brought me on with it and doing some consulting work for them, et cetera. And then the pandemic hit and all bets were off, to be blunt. So it took a bit post-pandemic for things to settle down and right themselves and this become a priority. But at that point, a decision was made for me to spend more time helping Bandsintown and consulting, and a little less time, not no time, but a little less time, a lot less time actually, doing Hypebot. And so, they invested in this new design and brought Jeremy aboard, and that's kind of where we are today. Jeremy, tell about your background. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to take over from you, Michael, but I think
no.
It's kind of interesting. Your listeners know my background as an agent. And of course now writing about music and tech, but that's sort of where I come from. But Jeremy has a similar but different background as well.
Jeremy, I mean, you've been on the Music Biz Weekly Podcast once or twice. I mean, I've been doing this so long. This is 15 years this year. I mean, and I say this to everybody who's been on. No offense. I can't remember all the guests and the topics we've talked about. 15 years of doing basically a weekly podcast, and as we all are getting older, I'm remembering
Michael,
less and less.
Michael, I've been a touring musician for 21 years too, and I can't. Some people will be like, "Have you ever been to Zagreb?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, it says on your tour history you've been there." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I went. Yeah, yeah, that was a good one. That was a good show. I can't remember anything anymore." Um, so anyway, hi folks. This is Jeremy Young. The last time I would have been on this podcast, it would have been at my old post at this company called Soundfly. I was one of the first hires. That was a company in the music education space. We built online courses with artists and institutions like Carnegie Hall and NYU. Um, and yeah, that company had a pretty long life, but it's sort of fledgling now, but it's designed to be that way. Right now, it's a peer-to-peer learning community. It isn't top down anymore like it used to be. And so I left, and a handful of other people left to sort of pursue other things. And actually, around the time of the pandemic, uh, well, basically, what I was doing at SoundCloud, I was the head of growth, so I was just working on like partnerships and marketing, um, and growth strategies, and more than anything, communications. And one of the auspices of that role was to do the blog Flypaper,
Yeah,
which
the
was
blog.
yeah, it was a
Yep.
daily blog. We didn't really touch like music industry news as much as we were just trying to let the blog exist as an extension of the mission of the company itself. So the idea was that if you come to Soundfly every day, you could take one of our courses, you could do a mentorship program, or you could spend 5 minutes just reading through the blog. And in any of these engagements, you'll learn something actionable and resourceful and insightful, and walk away with with a music education. Um, so that was the idea. So that was the idea behind the blog. And then during the pandemic, I don't know if you remember, but Bandzoogle was starting to go through a little bit of turmoil, and our mutual friend Dave Cool was being promoted, and the company was being like prepped to be sold or whatever. But there was a lack of people to take care of their their blog, which is an amazing
Hmm.
blog as well. That has to do with online promotion for artists and how to like sell more merch through the website, or how to build a website, or how to build an EPK, anything you can do for digital promotion. And Dave asked me to be the managing editor of that blog, like towards the end of the pandemic while they were transitioning. And so here I am. It's fucking COVID. Nothing's happening in the music industry, and I've got like three jobs. I'm doing Soundfly, I'm doing that, and I'm still like a working musician and music producer at home. I'm working more than I ever have, and I can't even step outside of my apartment. My poor wife. Um, so flash forward a few years, I'm not doing Bandzoogle anymore. I left Soundfly, and my plan was to leave the music industry entirely. So for a couple of years, I just did like some freelance work, uh, content marketing, communication strategy for any brands, basically anybody not in the music industry. And then old Bruce here pulled me back in.
Not old in age, old in wisdom and
That too.
experience.
Um,
No, I mean, you look,
yeah,
there are
no,
very
so
few people. There are very few people that I think have the breadth of knowledge to do what we do at Hypebot in terms of, understanding the business,
yeah.
understanding how the business and technology and trends affect musicians. I mean, that's what we're about. And, Jeremy is one of a handful of people, honestly, that I think have been doing it long enough also to have perspective. So, one of the things I think Hypot does well is we sort of cut through, like Jeremy and I are always, is this worth writing about? That's
Oh
that's
yeah,
uh,
every
like
day.
a three times a day conversation. And because a lot of stuff isn't, I mean, it sounds flashy, but it doesn't really, it's not going to stick. It doesn't matter to the average artist or music marketer.
Mm.
So anyway, to have the depth of knowledge and then also enough history so you go, yeah, right, NFTs, they sounded great, but you know, yes, we should write about them, but let's not make it our thing until it's been proven. And in that case, it wasn't. So or at least wasn't for now. But anyway, he was a great choice. I was so happy when Bandsintown brought him aboard.
Well, thank you. And this is what I was going to say was you were probably the only person I would take a call from, like in terms of like getting back into the music industry. But having the backing of bands in town is also great because like I spoke about, I mean, I'm a touring musician going back 20, 21 years. I use bands in town. I use it every time I launch a tour. I love this company. I love what they've built. I love the sort of tools that they provide to artists and the way that they connect artists to fans and artists to their different like digital presences, digital platforms, or whatever. But more than anything, I think like what Hypebot is, what Hypebot was and will always be for me is exactly what Bruce just said, which is it's a place where you can go to get a sense of what's going on in the music industry, but like filtered, like the fat is trimmed out and it's filtered to be, well, why is this important?
Yeah.
And what is really important? Why is it important? And what can I glean from this, like this news or announcement or analysis or insight or whatever into and bring it into my personal practice as an artist that's looking to grow um, my fan base, my digital presence, my know-it-all, my wherewithal, or whatever. Yeah.
I find it interesting that description you two gave of the back and forth and reviewing stuff, because that's sort of been the philosophy of the podcast, Music Biz Weekly Podcast,
Of course,
as well.
absolutely.
And I remember, when Jay left and I was out recruiting people, one of the interesting things about Blasco was I'm like, so just so you know, Blasco, we're always welcome to have guests on here. But I'm sure like you guys, I get PR sent to me on a daily basis of this new company, this new tool, this person's got great knowledge, whatever it is. And Blasco was in the same mindset I was of like, yeah, but is this, and Bruce, you and I might have even talked about the same philosophy. Is this targeted at the 1% of the companies out there that have deep budgets that can afford to spend $25,000 a year to use this great tool? Where the podcast is about, listen, it might be an exciting tool, but I want something that everybody out there can use. Your budget might be $25 a month. And is there something that you can use? And it's kind of us using our gut instinct and our experience to go, all right, this is kind of cool. But until they offer a poor man's level subscription, no, I mean, I'm going to have you come on and you're going to sell to two companies that could afford to hire you.
Yeah, I mean, like we get hit up all the time, and as do you. And my first question is how much?
Yeah.
Because, like there are 47 million super fan platforms, but about 2/3 of them cost $400 or $500 a month, for artists to set up on them or more. Right. I know one that, without naming names, we were all excited about one internally, and we met the guy, and we look at the guy, and at the end of it, I said, "How much?" And he said, $2,000 a month, and I went, "Well, okay, well,
yeah, I mean, sure, okay, you two and Biz can afford that,
or things that are sort of
98% of the actual working musicians out there are going to go, dude, I love those features. I could use those every day,
right?
But I'm struggling to even earn $2,000 a month,
right?"
But if you did, you should reinvest it in the software because it's going to 10x your.
Well, I think you guys are probably in the same mindset too. I've been doing this again. I said 15 years, but I've been in the music industry since '98, basically the birth of the internet. When I was working for Sony Signatures, which was a major. At that time, they're long gone. They've over the years finally evolved to become Live Nation merchandise. But that's where I was first building websites for people like Kiss and Britney Spears and Motley Crue and, looking how to monetize everything but their records, because the record companies were doing that. We were like, how do we sell tickets? How do we sell more merchandise? And so many startups would come and pitch you, and you'd like, this is a great idea. But my first question is, how do you make money? Because I don't want to commit one of my clients to using your tool set and have you 6 months from now belly up because you couldn't get another round of VC funding. And that still happens today. I mean, you've got to have some smarts about you when you're looking at these companies going, what's the reality of them being here 5 years from now? If I'm going to tell a major client to leave a platform, invest everything you're doing moving forward into this, I will lose my job if that company goes out of business, 12 months from now. They're going to how come you steered us down this path? Now, all of a sudden, we lost all of our fan data because the company went out of business.
Well, and I, it's the fact that things change so much. I mean, it's just the nature of the internet and business, et cetera. But like for years, I used Hootsuite for social media posting.
Same here.
And all of a sudden I turned around and it was going to renew and it was like $1,000, $1,200 a year or something. I'm like, I mean, I need a tool like this, but I asked you, Michael, and you use Publer, and now Hypebot uses Publer. Now, I don't know if Publer is the very best choice ever, but it's a damn sight, like 80% less expensive than Hootsuite, and it does almost everything, if not everything, and a few things that Hootsuite didn't do.
And listen, I pay to use Publer. They don't endorse me. They don't. I will tell you through all of my research from switching from Hootsuite to a new tool, which ended up being Publer. And I'm always looking at tools like that because I always want to see, is there somebody who's taken it from a different angle that really is impressive? My take is no, nobody's approaching the level of what somebody like Publer is doing right now. And I've had clients, I actually have a client right now who is using a different tool. I'm not going to name that tool, but therefore I have to use that tool because the client is set up on it. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, it's missing this feature and it's missing this feature and it's missing this feature. And it was so, I mean, just an unsponsored endorsement. Anybody who's listening, if you are looking for a tool to manage multiple social networks, content back and forth, Publer is, it's not going, you're not getting Publer for $10 a month, but unlike Hootsuite, which to your point, I think I remember when they were making that change in the amount of clients I was set up on, it was going to cost me like $2,000 a month. And I was like, oh, there's no way that's even considered an option. I am leaving. If I have to go do this manually, you're not getting $2,000 a month out of me. So yeah, no, Publer is, it's still in my mind the best of class out there for that type of tool set.
And we rely on people like you and ourselves in the trenches, for lack of a better way to put it, that are using this stuff to always update it. I mean, like, Canva's another one. It works, Yep. I mean, there's better stuff, but it's way more expensive and it doesn't work better. And there's parts of Canva that work, at least for me, because I'm, I don't want to say I'm not a Luddite, but I'm not back there writing code, let's put it that way. It works. So when we can find stuff like that and we can share it and and make it part of people's workflow, I feel great about that because we're making somebody's life better. We're giving them a better chance to find some level of success, which is, let's face it, why most musicians, just musicians, a lot of our readers now are we're doing a lot more with live music since Jeremy came in and really since, because of Bandsintown, if you will. It's like, okay, well, this makes sense. Let's make sure maybe we write a little bit less about music publishing, not that we never will, but and a little more about what's going on in live space. So we've got a lot of venues, we've got a lot of people in the touring industry, et cetera. And we want to give them tools and we want them to see, there's a great example. There are other trades in the venue space for sure, but almost in the live music space, but almost none of them are talking about marketing in the live music space, which, if you're an artist trying to sell 50 more tickets or you're a venue with 30 shows a month, it's the same problem. It's
Yep.
this, and it will have many of the same solutions. So it's, we've tried to evolve over time with the needs of the artist. And one of those needs, in the streaming era is we got to make money live. So how do we make money live? And that's been a thing for us. So that's another part of it. At 21 years, I'm not bored. Because it just changes all the time. What's going on?
I agree. I mean, it might be, you might feel like things have been pretty static for a few months, and then all of a sudden something new drops. Because that's what I love is there is right now somebody in a dorm room somewhere brainstorming an incredible idea that none of us even imagined that could have an impact. And I love the marriage of music and technology. Those are the two things in my life I absolutely love. I think computers are amazing. And from day one of my very first VIC 20, I remember computers are a tool to make your life easier, not more complicated, not create more work. And to this day, I still look at computers and software and websites as, are you making my job easier? Are you saving me time? Or are you creating more work? If you're creating more work, I'm probably going to pass on it unless it's an incredible solution. And yeah. I think you guys have the same philosophy. I don't like to talk about something. You probably don't like to write about something unless you've actually tried it out and used it yourself. Because if I'm going to tell a struggling musician, a young indie band, this works, I feel like I've got my personal credibility on the line, and I don't want somebody to come back and go, God, that was just a huge ripoff. I got nothing out of it, and I lost $500. No, I use it myself.
I think
I think
there's an aspect of that informs our decision making in terms of like what we cover and how we cover it. But I think on Hypebot there's a sort of wider angle that we're trying to sort of uh, um, utilize in terms of our coverage and how we're supporting artists and artist teams, which is okay. Yeah, we talk about there's 100 press releases in my inbox every morning or whatever. Bruce's as well. It's the first line of questioning is is this worth talking about and why? But then what we try to do every week and what we try to do globally, like over the course of like a season or a year, is to just keep this stuff in the back of our head. What businesses are launching, what tools are launching, what tools are more competitive than others, like are some kinds of tools or startups or announcements or platforms or whatever, or like, do they fit into a trend that is growing or is that trend dying? And globally, like on a day-to-day basis, we have to think about this stuff. Like, okay, Spotify just launched this new little tool that helps like 1% of its artists do this thing or whatever. Okay, great. We can talk about it. We don't have to talk about it. That doesn't really matter. But like, why? Why are they investing millions of dollars into this one little thing? And what does that say about the rest of the industry, where it might be going? And what does that say to you, the artist or the team that's managing an artist? Hey, you should maybe pay attention to this,
Pay attention.
not because you should use it, but because this is probably where the industry is going. And this is
Right.
like if Spotify is broadcasting that they're introducing, whatever, this kind of podcast engagement or remixing songs or whatever, like you might feel uncomfortable with that, the idea that fans could be remixing your songs or or you might not really have an avenue to like actionize that right now or something, but just put a pin in this because we're telling you right now, this is where everything else is going. And this signals
Yeah.
how fans on a level of like tens or hundreds of millions of fans are interacting with music right now. It's how younger generations of fans are interacting, and all this other stuff about you posting Facebook events or this or that or whatever, that could be obsolete pretty soon. So just like put a pin in this, like globally, we're going to talk about this one thing, but we're also like, I think this is what Bruce has done really well in the last like decade or so. But this is something that like we talk about this all the time, but this is a really important part of what makes Hypebot tick is like just acknowledging and trying to continually reference this global trend. Like,
Yep.
and this is pretty much every article we run nowadays. Oh, okay. So, just today, right now, the cover story on Hypebot is about how AC/DC and Bon Jovi are launching comeback tours. Okay, great. Who cares? Fucking the 20, 30, 40 years, there's been comeback tours of artists that got popular in the 60s or 70s, and a couple of them died, and a couple of them got replaced by their sons or daughters or whatever, and now they're back on the road. Great. That's fine. Why is it different now? What's happening that's differently now? Well, a lot of platforms are offering VIP packages, which offer a certain type of entertainment experience for a certain type of demographic. Great, that's worth mentioning. There's customizable, personalized merch companies that are doing stuff where you can make a one-off poster or print on demand or whatever, and this is creating different revenue streams for comeback tours that don't always want to be reprinting Back in Black from AC/DC or whatever for the 60th time. You know, there are different through lines that can be actionable to musicians and teams on any level. And just because the source material is the fact that AC/DC and Bon Jovi are going back on the road for a comeback tour, well, now we've got all these other things that we can talk about that are trends that are happening
Yep.
that are relevant to everyone.
Around that comeback tour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And the read that article because if you haven't, or I'm saying this to anyone watching this, because it does a great job, in the final third of saying why
Mm.
you, as an independent artist who may have not had hit records but want to have a long career, should pay attention to this because some of it matters to
Yeah.
you. What is your cat? What is your old? Who cares about your old music? Is it getting spins? If you're out on the road, it may be. If you're not making new music and out on the road, it won't be. And there's some stuff around that. I love the one in the last week or week and a half ago. I wrote about what your search engine profile was,
yep.
and how in the age of agentic search, how that was even more important, right? And you then guys picked it up and talked about it on the podcast.
Yep.
That then actually made me think about, I should have hit you up on this, and I did another short piece
I just shared that
right
yesterday
on a
or today.
related topic, right? And then Spotify announces that they're got voice search, essentially a chat bot to talk to create playlists, and all of those things are related topics in the
Yeah.
sense of how fans discover music, how bands interact with music is changing, and how if you don't have your shit together with your metadata and your descriptors, and making sure that you're going to get lost. And
Yep.
Yeah.
not to
The
the
cavalry
horns of
has
three
moved
people
on
on the
without you.
call, but not on this Zoom, but not everybody got that was a connected. Those were connected stories, really, not directly connected, but all part of the same.
And you know what's I don't know, funny or sad, depends on your perspective on it. I know in the Music Biz Weekly podcast over 15 years, I've talked about with the various co-hosts, running an audit. Now, maybe we didn't call it an audit, but hey, just go do a search and see what the results are. Because I feel like even today, it's the real simple things. It's one simple thing that still isn't being done or still hasn't been solved. And And a lot of these new startups are creating very amazing tools that are complicated. And I'm sitting back going, is there really a problem there yet? Is that problem really exist for most of us? Because my big problem is, yeah, most people aren't running searches on themselves. Google News alerts have been around for decades. It's a free service. I've been using it outside of music. I just put my name in just so I can see what's coming up on myself. But yet it's still something that people, maybe, what do you think of this? Do some people feel like a simple, easy to use free tool must not be that important? It's only the tools that I have to pay for that are really going to help my career along. And my take is no, it's the free stuff that actually is really important to master.
I also think there's an interesting bias, and that is, if it was created for musicians or the music industry, then artists and musicians and music marketers and labels will pay attention to it. If it's a general tool, which the Google tracking is, they don't pay attention to it, even though it's the simplest, freest, been around forever thing. People. I mean, I'm going to tell them one of my secrets to the Bandsintown guys, but they're always going, "How did you find about that about Songkick?" And I'm like, "Well, because I get an alert when something happens with Songkick, and it's a simple thing. I've actually written a thing for my students at Berkeley where I'm going to make them look at their online presence and tell me what they see. I did it for a friend's band, and it was both wonderful in places, like, wow, they kind of got it, what this song was all about. How did AI, this, and it's not the artist. So there were not a lot of articles written about this song. And yet at the same time, they got something very wrong. So I think there's a bias against tools that were not built for musicians.
You're probably right. I mean, I've always preached, look outside of the music industry for inspiration and ideas. What's going on in television, in movies, in video games, in, I don't know, in supermarkets. You might not be able to use the exact tool, but you could sit here and go, whoa, that's an interesting thing they're doing. And if I do this, this, and this, I can utilize that. And my feeling is that puts you ahead of a lot of the other musicians out there because, to your point, they're only using what's being sold as a tool for musicians. Reach out and look at tools that a general business uses, and can you do the same thing?
Yeah. Well, ahead
we try and do
alongside, but I mean, this is sort of like the music industry is set up with these sorts of things, like to get you to fall in line in a weird way. Like, there's a gospel about EPKs, and then when someone turns on the EPK, then there's a gospel about like a link tree, and then when someone turns on Linktree, then and the idea is that like I hear this. So going back to my days at Soundfly when I had like daily conversations with actual musicians, and now I just have actual conversations with actual musicians because I just spend a lot of time I spend a lot of time in bars. But like, I have a close friend who's like a singer-songwriter. They've done everything by the book their whole career. They've launched like 3 albums or something. They set up a website, they set up an EPK, they've got all these different things. They've done everything right. But then they wonder why they're not getting booked or why they're not getting the opportunities other people are getting or whatever. And the problem, their music is fine. Their music is great. They're super talented. They get on stage and they can light up a room. The problem is there's nothing that actually separates them from anyone else. And at some point, it's like, well, are we going to book these 5 artists that all kind of have a same looking website with the same little things and the little modules or whatever? It all looks the same and it's nice. And you get the photo shoot that you did that one day where the sun was out, whatever. Or are we going to book this like grimy looking band that looks like they just crawled out of the sewer or whatever? It's like, well, in a weird way, it's like I'd rather book them because they look like they can attract an audience that, that like is hungering for something, And so I always, yeah, it's a similar story. It's like you have to break out of the mold that the industry is laying out for you because the industry is incentivized to get as many people into that mold as possible. They're not working for you. Like you kind of have to push back against that
Well,
stuff.
I think you guys would agree with this. So many of these tools are being sold, pitched, promoted as it's the magic bullet that's going to take your career
Yeah,
to the
you
next
can't live
level.
without this.
Whatever next level means. This and sadly, so many musicians are looking for that magic bullet of I don't want to put in all this work. Can I just do this one thing and pay this one company, and will it make me successful? And we all know that's not how it works. It will never work that way. It's never worked that way in the past. But musicians are being sold that because that's what they're craving. And as a marketing person, as a company, they're like, well, if we can get another subscription by promising them more success quicker. I mean, that's why to this day, we still see countless websites saying, hey, I'll get you 1 million plays on YouTube. No problem. Just click this button and it's done. You want
Yeah.
YouTube streams, you want Spotify streams, you want whatever it is. It's because that's what musicians crave, and somebody's going to sell it to them.
It's a lot tougher too to write about that, but we try to do it. Like a long time ago, an agent friend of mine, I'll give him credit, Mark Laurie, we were working together for a couple decades, said, it's not good enough to be great, you also have to be special. We were talking about why do we want to sign this band or not sign this band? Like, oh, they're a great guitar player, they have a great voice. Well, a lot of people have great voices or are great guitar players, but what makes them unique? And we try to write about that stuff. What was the French Canadian band that
Angine
is
de
in black and white?
Oh, yeah.
What's the name? I can never say it.
Angine de Poitrine.
Okay, well, thank
Yeah,
you for saying that.
they just played with Jack
at,
White the other night in Toronto, and Jack White dressed up in a polka dot shirt or whatever. And it was
right, and why does that work? Well, it works because they're doing something different. I mean, the music is interesting and et cetera. It's not my personal cup of tea, but I had to pay attention because what they were doing was different. And so, you can if you can be special enough or different enough to make people pay attention, you're going to win. You may win some fans. If you're not, no offense to your friends, why am I going to pay attention? If they look like 6 other acts I already like, I'd like to say the world does not need another sensitive songwriter. It just doesn't. We've got too many of them already. And yet I love sensitive music.
We already have Taylor Swift, so everybody else can just go home.
Anyway, but we do try and write about that too, and we try. But it's not as easy. It's not like, here's this thing, go use Publer. It'll make your life easier to, you instead of spending an hour posting a week, you can spend 15 minutes. It's not that simple, but it's just as important. And maybe and more important.
Let me ask you final question before we wrap up here. One of the, when it was announced that Bandsintown had purchased Hypebot, in this specific case, I wasn't as too concerned because I knew you were involved in Hypebot and you were going along to Bandsintown. But in many cases like that, fear sets in of like, oh my God, is the company purchasing the other company going to shut it down, roll it into what they've got, lose interest in it, and it slowly disappears. And from the outside, I can't speak to what might have gone on internally. From the outside, I didn't feel like that had happened at all with Hypebot. So what I want to ask you guys is, what is the working relationship between Hypebot and Bandsintown? Is there, it's the Bandsintown attitude of, hey, if it ain't broke, let's not try and fix it. Leave it alone. It's doing great on its own. Is it, let's try and influence the editorial direction to support what we want to do. Where does that stand between Hypebot and Bandsintown?
Yeah, okay. I've got a great answer for this. Although, Bruce, if you want, you can speak to the
Oh, you
historical
start. Go for it.
context or whatever. Um, yeah, every week they try to march into my office with their Bandsintown Gestapo boots, and we have to fight them off. No.
I'm sensing there's some sarcasm there, I hope.
No, that's sarcastic. No.
Yes.
Michael, you really hit the nail on the head there. The Hypebot is editorially independent, period. But Bandsintown is an enormous part of like the ethos of this blog, and it's become so what I think we share. Well, actually, this is acknowledged. We share this perspective, which is everything that we've been talking about this whole time on this podcast is about what is useful for artists and teams and what is useful, operational and powerful for artists and teams, and how do you cut through the bullshit or whatever. And the perspective that like Bruce and I share, which is the perspective of the company of Bandsintown, is that the live music environment, like a live concert, is the place and the moment where artists and fans come closest together, and when it's how you share a moment that is like powerful, personal, spiritual, whatever, and commercial. And no matter what happens in your music career, you'll never be able to take that away from an artist or a fan. A live music experience, right? Okay, so
Yep.
that's the reality. Live music is the place where music, what music is for. It's not the album, it's not the streaming, it's not the marketing, it's nothing. It's where music happens. And we're all in support of this moment. And so, given that, we share this perspective that we want to cover, like, we want to cover any topics that have to do with like artist empowerment and artist growth or whatever, whether that's tech and AI, whether that's digital tools for promotion and fan growth or whatever, or whether it's contextually what is happening in the live music space, why is this important that this person is on tour? What's happening in Australia with these new business models that venues are playing around with? Like, this matters because live music matters. And so when Bandsintown and Hypebot do come together, like I said, Hypebot is editorially independent, but when we do come together, it's under the rooftop of this shared perspective of what really works for artists and what really works for fans. And so we want to be the place where Bandsintown, as a company, but also just like as a platform, as a tool, as like a useful sort of um, like opportunity for artists that exists. We want to be the place where Bandsintown can like showcase that stuff, but they are also the place where we go to gather trends, data, analyses. We want to see what the difference is between artists that are playing in Oakland versus artists that are playing in New York City or Mumbai or whatever. Are they playing different venues? Are they playing indoors, outdoors? Like Bandsintown has all this information. It's a wealth of resources and information, and it's important for us to go there to recognize how those trends are actually playing out. So it works both ways, and I am in love with this relationship. It is so great. So yeah, that's why, I mean, not to be like spewing the gospel a little bit here, but like the way that we talk about what's happening in the music industry is different than Billboard or Polestar or
Well, I was just going to ask you, I guess, one final question, but
well,
Bruce,
whatever it is, I'll let Bruce take it.
Bruce, as when we first started, you mentioned how when Hypebot first started, it was the only music website out there really covering the music industry. And as we know, that's not the case today. I mean, there are other dedicated music industry websites. There's a lot of mainstream media that have music industry sections. Are you concerned with how to differentiate yourself from all that? Or is it more of, I'm not worrying about the competition, we're just going to keep doing what we think we've always done right?
I guess it's a little bit of both. I'd be lying if I didn't say I don't pay attention to what other people do, but it has happened naturally that the Flypaper, Bandzoogle blog, CD Baby blog, Reverb Nation blog, all the people that were doing what we were doing are not doing it anymore because those, or at least not to the degree that we are, because those companies didn't make a long-term investment in the way that Bandsintown did to this part of education and communication with artists, and that's really exciting to be a part of. But just to go back to Jeremy's point, it only works in part because Bandsintown ethos is to try and help all artists. And the algorithm is set up in such a way that it's not just telling you, oh yeah, AC/DC or Taylor Swift or whatever is at the Civic Center. It's telling you what's at the 127 seat club down the street too. It's the fact and that most of the tools that for artists and all the tools for fans and even some tools for venues are free or very affordable. So all that works, and I will give them credit as well. They listen to Jeremy and I too. I mean, they will come and say, "What do you think about this? How are we presenting this? Do you think this is somebody?" And in fact, that's the role that I'm taking more on is, a little less Hypebot, a little more Bandsintown is, what is it that the industry, the players in the industry, the day-to-day players, the booking agent who works out of his bedroom or the band who's trying to get from 1,000 fans to 5,000 fans, that's the back and forth that we have with Bandsintown. We help inform the work that they do too. We're very lucky. I'm very lucky that they found me. And honestly, credit to a guy named John Ostro, who brought us in. We all know him. He now is an executive at Spotify in the live music end of what Spotify does. And but he was, he worked for Ariel Hyatt, who was a real
I remember that.
PR person, and would sometimes write things for Hypebot. And then anyway, he's the reason that Hypebot is at Bandsintown, because he thought, God, this is a good fit, the blog and I guess me, it turns out. But we're very, very fortunate, and we sometimes decide that we're not going to write about something because we have insider information because of Bandsintown. But because Hypebot was never meant to make, we're very seldom saying this sucks, don't do it, they're bad people. We're not that kind of journalism. And
you'd rather just not talk about it if it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, if UMG gets a new executive, it's not a story for Bandsintown. If a bunch of, it's not a story for Hypebot, pardon me. But if Bandcamp lays off all its engineers, it may be a story for Hypebot. Now, I'm not going to beat it to death, but I think people should know, hey, just pay attention a little bit. Something's gone on over there. You use this platform, you make a bunch of money. We have never been told not to do that. We are always encouraged to just gently, quietly, professionally, journalistically tell the truth. And it's wonderful.
Yep. Well, guys, I mean, this is awesome. I honestly, Bruce, I think in all the years of this podcast, I've never had you or anybody from Hypebot on to just talk about Hypebot. It's sort of been.
Well, I'm the first then.
You are. We've always had you or somebody on to talk about what was going on in the industry.
Sure.
Yeah.
But we've never really talked about Hypebot itself and what its philosophy is. And I think this is fascinating. I mean, and just so everybody knows, I mean, you and Jeremy are big supporters and have always been big supporters of the podcast. But we're not paid. We're not
I was going to say,
it's completely separate editorial.
Right. You like us, we like you, so we help promote each other. Not a dime it passes between us. If you want to send us a check, Michael, we'll take it. But
yeah,
but,
if you want to, if you want to pay me a sponsorship fee,
that's right,
I'll be
exactly.
happy to take it.
Yes.
But no, you're right. I mean, the love that I and other co-hosts over the years have expressed for Hypebot and Bandsintown has always been 100% natural. It is because we use it, and I actually remember when I started my company back in 2010, I hit the internet and I searched for music marketing, and I remember Hypebot came up, and I'm like, all right, I need to get my name out there. Hey, I think I remember I wrote an article about the Kiss Online website and how it was misusing social media back in 2010. And you were like, hey, could we repost this? And I'm like, sure. And that relationship has continued that way. But the point is, I naturally sought out Hypebot, 26 years ago, because it was like, okay, I need to get my name out. This seems to be the big player in the music marketing space.
Well, thank you. We feel the same way about you. So thank you so much.
So again, thank you guys for coming on, sharing some of the philosophy and behind the scenes of what's going on with Hypebot. And of course, always keep us updated if there's anything to talk about. I mean, it's not an instant, yes, we'll talk about it. We're going to have to evaluate it like you evaluate stuff as well and go, this is worth mentioning. But in my mind, sometimes it's the simplest things that are worth talking about. It's, it's one new feature that makes something completely different and usable when it wasn't before.
Yep, very much.
All right. So, guys, once again, thank you to Bruce and Jeremy for joining us and your continued support of the Music Biz Weekly podcast. That's it. We will see everybody next week.
Every month, thousands of musicians and industry professionals listen to the Music Biz Weekly podcast. If you have a product or service and would like to reach this audience, get in touch with Michael to discuss sponsorship opportunities.
Voices for the Music Biz Weekly podcast provided by LarryDavisVoice.com.